Here we go again with another holding the mic video because every time I stick it under my shirt or clip it, it looks bad. And I move around too much so it rustles and I don't feel like digging out like the windscreen and all that. And even though it's under my shirt and it's windy outside, but not in, you know how it goes. It's Winslow, people. So I want to chat about something I wrote about on Patreon. Link in the description, you want to read it. I do the occasional, what I call studio journals, which is me just sort of writing down ideas, journal entries, but less like,
Dear Diary, how are you?
And more just like, I tried this thing and I'm working on my ideas and writing them down as a way to sort of process it, and reading it back is like, oh, okay, that's what I tried. That's what I meant. This worked, that didn't work, that kind of thing. And one thing I put in there, or the main sort of focus, is the fact that I'm sort of in this production reshuffle. I think that's what I put it, of just like, I'm taking stock of what I've been doing, what's working, what's not working, what I can learn, gaps in my knowledge or technique, stuff like that. Basically every year around this time, I just sort of, do like a performance review almost, not like itemize, you've been doing this and what is your purpose here and your TPS reports. But it's just like, all right, it's been a year, you've tried a lot of stuff, you've learned a lot of things, consumed, had experiences that have changed the way you want to work and the way you think. What do we want to do about those things? Usually the case is just, I just want to improve or get better. But me being me, I have to, make more sense than this sentence has, and I'm still talking. But I have to, actually think about it, break it down, try and make some actionable parts of it. And yeah, long intro to say, I'm just trying to up my game. Musically, I've always been pretty good, confident, like musical ideas are always there. Experimentation makes those better. But because it's drum and bass, there's always someone like tugging at your sleeve like, yo, this could be a bit cleaner, a bit crispy, a bit, insert adjective. And yeah, there's truth to that. Like, I'm not going to go too far, but contextually within the sound I like, the aesthetic I like musically, I can always do a bit better. I could be a bit crispy, a bit cleaner, a bit punchier, a bit whatever, but within the realm of my sound. Now, for the last couple of years, I've made a concerted effort to really make sort of modern sounding, yet influenced by like 90s boom bap, hip hop, more the East Coast stuff, drum and bass. So that really started with Thinking of You, which is all that put together, you know what I mean? And since then, I've sort of fell in and out of focus of doing that and sort of really nailing that sound, because I like to sample. I like a bit of character and not like really crisp, tight, synthesized breaks and sounds. I just want crunchy character, soul, whatever you want to call it, but modernize it because drum and bass demands a certain amount of focus, and you can't just have bad production. You gotta find that fine line. That's why Caliber exists, which is pretty lo-fi within drum and bass context. And then you have like break, which is pretty hi-fi. Then you have neurofunk, which is just like, you guys don't know how to mix it all. We're over here with the real science. You know what I mean?
Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Friday, which means it's time for a new How to Bass tutorial. And today I'm going to show you how to make this sound.
But my favorite thing about any kind of music is the character it has and how it balances character with sonic quality and blah, 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 which is all sort of the same thing. Basically how it sounds. And I want my music to sound better within context and all that stuff. And what sort of brought on, this wave of thinking, because this happens every year at some point in the year, of just like, man, I could do a bit better, after a little time to relax. And it was the last release. So Jazz Hands, my latest tune, just came out on Sofa Sound on the Sofa King 6 Part 1 compilation with a bunch of other like amazing tunes. And if you listen to mine and then listen to all the other ones, you realize there's a gap. I don't sound like any of the rest of the Sofa Sound catalog. You hear Sofa Sound, obviously I have the funk. I have the funk, the fun, the character, the hip hop edge, the attitude, sure. But sonically, everything's so much crisper and punchier and deeper bass and blah, blah, blah. And then you hear my tune and it's like flabby bass, unfocused breaks, a little muffled, a little bit pushed too hard, which to be fair is more about how they push the master like into oblivion to make it loud. But you know, aesthetically, drum and bass has got to be loud. You know what I mean? But that's the thing, like the way I write, the way I produce, I don't really write stuff to be super loud. So it does sort of fall apart when you try and make it loud. And that's something to think about. Not necessarily to be loud, but if it's going to a place, a label that's going to, you know, sort of focuses on loud but clear and sort of pushed a bit further than that sometimes, then I got to up my game to be able to fix that. Like, it's not that they're the problem. It's that if I'm going to that side of things, I need to adjust what I'm doing to better fit that aesthetic or that sound. And that's just being creative and, you know, sort of molding to your audience, meeting them halfway. For example, there's Peaced Out, right? Which was last year's big tune, if I do say so myself. But that was sort of me going dance floor. But I didn't go the whole way of like really, you know, sub-focus, culture shock, that kind of thing. I took the Thinking of You aesthetic and cleaned it up just a little bit. Sort of used drums that are characteristic of dance floor, you know, your big 200 hertz snare, blah, 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 you know, easy riff, but then gave it a little bit of edge, a little bit of funk, a little bit of me, you know what I mean? And that middle ground is how that tune came out. And I'm really happy about it. But it isn't me completely abandoning my sound and my style because I'm confident in that. I'm confident in the ideas. I'm confident in the music. But if I'm trying a certain thing that is a bit out of my realm, then I want to find the good parts I like about that and meet it halfway. Add a little bit of there, leave a few things behind. You know, I'm never going to be a do rhythm kind of guy, but like I can take that aesthetic and apply it to what I like. So this like wave of just wanting to improve and get better and stuff is me taking stock of who I am and what I want to say through my music and what I want to convey. And there's plenty of ways to do it. You know, I can become less technical and really not care about any of the production side, and that's okay. I could completely obsess over the production and forget about the music, but that wouldn't be me. I could do it, but it wouldn't be me. You know, it's like why I don't mix full of doubles, triples, quadruple drops, and all that stuff. And I just sort of let tunes ride and blend as I feel like, and an occasional double drop. It's because I can do the other thing, but I don't want to do the other thing because that's just not what comes naturally to me. That's not what I feel. It's not what I want to hear. And if there's any sort of trend in what I'm doing, whether it be YouTube, like we talked in the last video, or this one, like, I just want to make what I want to hear. You know, I like listening to my music after about a 6-month period. But I like listening to my music because it's what I want to hear. I feel like I'm filling a gap that I'm not hearing. I like to blend things that don't necessarily go together on face value, but like when you figure out how to work them, they can work. And Jazz Has is one of those tunes. Like, it is jungly, it is tech steppy, it is liquid funky, it is rollery, it is all these sort of separate things that I took the time over a couple years to figure out how to make it all work. And that's why it's a part of that compilation. That's why it's on Sofa Sound. And no matter how much doubt I have about it, the people in charge, DLR, LD50, who run the label, like, they wanted the tune because of the way it sounded. And it sounds like how I want it to sound and not how what they've put out in the past necessarily sounds. It's interesting to them. It's different. It had a different flavor, a different character, but it still fit within that realm of Sofa Sound. You know what I mean? And no matter how much doubt I have or imposter syndrome or whatever, I didn't get to decide whether it was good enough for them or not. They did. I simply put myself out there, sent the tune through an email, and DLR responded like, yo, like, I want this tune for the next Sofa King 6 compilation. And I'm not going to get in my way and say no. You know what I mean? So that's what happened. So I guess the whole, like, something you can take away from this video outside of me trying to get better is you never know who's listening or what someone's going to think about what you're making. And you might be full of doubt, and maybe you're right, but sometimes you might be wrong. And when you put your music out into the world, get it out of your head, you get it out of your computer, out of that folder that just sits there, you know, waiting Sometimes good things can happen, unexpected things. I didn't think I'd have a release on Sofa Sound anytime soon. I always wanted to, believe me, but like, I didn't think it'd be this one. And there's no way I could have decided that ahead of time. I just had to take my time, make what I wanted to make, explore my own ideas and what I like, and then put those ideas out into the world and hope someone hears what I'm trying to do. And if the right person hears it and they like it and they have a label and they want to put it out, that's how these things happen. It's the same story with Hospital. It's the same story with picking the other label. Like, I didn't know nothing to convince someone else to like what I was doing other than just do what I was doing and do it at a high level, whatever I was capable of at the moment. And they liked it. So I'm spending all this time to get better. So I like my music a bit more. And it sounds a bit better and it speaks in a way that I want to speak. And it comes across the way I want it to come across, which is fun, musical, modern, aesthetically rich, full of character, funk, all those good things. That's who I am. You know what I mean? And no matter what style or what like pocket of drum and bass or beyond, because I do make other things if you want to dig through that discography, like whatever I make is going to sound like me. That's a video from a few years ago if you want to explore that idea. But anyway, that's kind of all I want to say. Think about what you're doing, how you could improve. Think about some gaps that might be in your knowledge or your technique, you know, and figure out how to learn them. You know, if you need help being pushed in that direction, message me, leave a comment. That's my thing. I love figuring out my own ways. I love helping other people figure out what they're trying to do. That's why I'm a teacher. This stuff is fun. It's nerve-wracking. It's full of doubt. Sometimes I hate everything I make. But within all of that is enjoyment, fulfillment. It's progress. I'd be bored if I wasn't doing any of this. The worst day in the studio is the best, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I'm out of here. Links, subscribe, all that good stuff. Later.